It mentioned the movie about 2 weeks before the Battle of New Orleans. They had gathered together in Ghent. Anybody know where that is? What country? They said in the video. Anybody pick that up? Belgium. They actually had negotiators going to Belgium to negotiate this treaty 2 weeks before that Battle of New Orleans. So when the treaty was already pretty much taken care of, and then we get this victory in New Orleans, it really gave Americans the thought that we had won the War of 1812 because we won the last battle. Truth of the matter is the war was more or less a stalemate. Okay? Well, it was kind of interesting because ironically when the Treaty of Ghent was negotiated, it really didn't state anything about many of the reasons why the United States declared war on Great Britain in the first place. You remember the reasons? Violation of freedom of the seas, the impressment of American sailors, American national pride, and American what? Greed for land. Okay? So it really didn't say anything when they got together and decided this treaty. They never even mentioned the seizure of American ships or the impressment of American sailors or violation of the freedom of the seas. Didn't even really come up in the discussion. So what did it all come about? What did it all come about? What it meant? What was the main part of it? Land. Okay? So the Treaty of Ghent did accomplish these 4 objectives. So when representatives from the United States and representatives from Great Britain got together and signed this Treaty of Ghent, it did accomplish these 4 objectives. First of all, it arranged for the release of all prisoners of war. Because there were prisoners of war. The Battle of New Orleans wasn't the only battle. There was Lake Erie, there was Lake Champlain. There were a lot of skirmishes in the War of 1812 that we really didn't cover. And there were prisoners of war taken on both sides. And one of the objectives of the Treaty of Ghent was to release all prisoners of war on both sides. The second thing the Treaty of Ghent did is it settled disputes over the boundaries of the United States and what? Canada. Okay? Favorably to us, by the way. The treaty settled disputes over boundaries of the United States and Canada. It also, frankly, restored peace between the United States and Great Britain. No longer were we at war. That was the third objective. And it improved relations between the United States and Great Britain. Okay, it improved relations between the United States and Great Britain. So the Treaty of Ghent really did accomplish 4 objectives. It arranged for the release of all prisoners of war. It settled disputes over boundaries of the United States and Canada. It restored peace between the United States and Great Britain. And it improved relations between the United States and Great Britain. Okay, that was the Treaty of Ghent. Now, our last subtopic for this test material, and you'll look on your ID sheet, and all the stuff that's past this, I will give you a new ID sheet for it when we start the next material, so you can cross those out or whatever you want to do. But the last subtopic will be a turning point in American history for the United States. A turning point in American history for the United States. The rest of that stuff we'll all give you at the next test material, so you can cross it out. I will give you a new sheet. I'm going to give you 4 important reasons why the War of 1812 marked a turning point in American history. What things happened after the War of 1812 that turned American history for the better. Okay? So, the War of 1812 marked a turning point in American history for these 4 important reasons. Okay, number 1. From 1789 to 1850, which was the conclusion of the War of 1812, 1850. From 1789 to 1850, all the things that happened in Europe between 1789 and 1850 helped the United States develop a foreign policy. So when the War of 1812 ended in 1850, as we look back at all the things that happened in Europe during the time between 1789 and 1815, we finally were able to develop a good foreign policy. Did we ever have a good foreign policy prior to that, really? No, we had to learn from the things that went on in Europe during those years for us to finally develop a good foreign policy. So, from 1789 to 1815, all these events in Europe that the United States had to deal with during that period of time helped us develop a foreign policy. Number two, the second reason that the War of 1812 marked a turning point in American history is that after the War of 1812, the United States became more independent of Europe. They became more independent of Europe. All this time prior to that, were we pretty dependent on Europe? Absolutely. After the War of 1812, the United States of America became more independent of Europe. Now, the third reason why the War of 1812 marked a turning point in American history is prior to this, did European countries, especially the major European countries, think that the United States could, quote, stand on its own 2 feet? No. But this victory in the War of 1812, if that's what you want to call it, the United States gained a much needed respect from European countries. We gained a much needed respect. And finally, this is the same one, number 3, European countries thought that the United States of America could indeed stand on their own feet. So, the third reason the War of 1812 marked a turning point in American history was that the United States gained much needed respect from major European countries who finally believed that the United States of America could stand on their own 2 feet. And this is probably the most important reason that the War of 1812 marked a turning point in American history. For the next 100 years, from 1812 to 1912, during that period of time, we would not be directly involved in any European wars. It seemed like we were involved in every European war. From 1812 to 1912, and that would be after this war, during that 100 years, we were not directly involved in any European wars. So what did we do? When you look at these 4 turning points in American history, what was the result for the United States as a result of the War of 1812? We started concentrating on developing what? Our own country, rather than dealing with foreign countries across the globe. For 100 years, we concentrated and did things that were best for our country and quit worrying about what everybody else was doing. And that was very beneficial in our nation's history for 100 years. And as we cover these next several topics between now and World War I, you will notice that we do not end up spending a bunch of time worrying about foreign countries. The only wars we're going to be involved in that 100 years is what? A war with ourselves and a really summer-long skirmish called the Spanish-American War. And that didn't last long. So we're starting to concentrate on things at home. Okay, what I want you to do then is I want you to kind of get to your notes and get ready. We're going to have a little review here in a minute. I'm going to run out for a second. I'll be back and you guys be ready to roll. We're going to have a review for the test. Okie dokie, kiddos, let's see how bright we are. We're going to start with Rasmussen today because he's kind of the brightest one in the class. So I'm going to ask him a question. These will be on the test for sure. I want you to tell us, Brady, without any interruption from anybody else, what was the unusual circumstance that occurred in the election of 1808? Kind of a weird circumstance. Be worth noting. What was the weird circumstance that happened in the election of 1808? We've got all kinds of time, so I'm going to let you figure it out. What happened that's kind of weird about that election?
Oh, George Clinton.
Yeah. George Clinton ran against who?
James Madison and Charles.
Very good. And what was he? What was George Clinton? But what was he at the time?
Oh,
He was Lincoln's vice president. So he actually was Lincoln's vice president and ran against Lincoln in the election. And then when he lost, what? Lincoln. Did I say Lincoln?
Yeah.
Sorry. George Clinton was Madison's. I don't know why I got Lincoln. George Clinton was Madison's vice president, and he ran against him for the presidency. And then when he lost, they just assigned him the vice presidency again to maybe take away any of his aspirations to be president. If you were the president, how much would you like to work with the guy that ran against you? That'd be kind of different, but it happens sometimes. It's going to happen in college football here at University of Houston, where their coach went to Texas, right? And so they interviewed 2 assistants for the head coaching job. I will guarantee you neither one of those assistants will get the job, and they'll hire an outside person who may or may not choose to keep those 2 assistants. Probably will keep maybe one of them. That's kind of the same thing. That person who won the job is not going to be working on the person. That would make me a little nervous, but who knows. Anyway, that is exactly right. So we'll move over to JC, and she's going to answer this question. And her blood pressure just went up. In what presidential election did the Federalists gain seats in Congress, and what did that mean? In what election did the Federalists gain seats in Congress, and what did that mean?
Is that the election of 1812?
It is. And what did that mean when all these Federalists gained seats in the Congress? What did that mean?
Many Americans were opposing war.
Good girl. Woo! That's exactly right. Man, we're 2 for 2. But we're moving to Blossom. Miss Self-Confidence back there. We're going to figure her out. Okay. Just don't go into craziness. Just answer the question. What was the British reaction to the ultimatum they were given by President Madison? What was their reaction? What did they do when President Madison gave them the ultimatum to quit messing with our ships and sailors? What did they do?
They first suspended the orders of council.
That's all you need. Right there. They suspended the orders in council. Very good. 3 for 3. Kayla? Well, why did the United States of America declare war on Great Britain despite their positive actions to Madison's ultimatum? Why did they still declare war if they suspended the orders in council, as Casey said, which was the problem?
They had hunger for
Well, not yet.
the violated freedom of speech.
Not yet. Keep going back. Why did the United States of America declare war on Great Britain?
Oh.
You're not far off, but what's the...
They didn't receive they suspended orders in council.
Yeah, they didn't receive the news that they had suspended the orders in council. We didn't wait too long to receive the news because of what she said, which we'll get to. But the reason why the United States of America declared war on Great Britain despite their positive actions to Madison's ultimatum is they didn't get the news in time. Okay? Now, Olivia, other than hunger for land, list the 3 other reasons why America declared war on Great Britain in 1812.
Okay, they violated freedom of the seas. They impressed American soldiers and then
Sailors.
Sailors, yeah.
Huh?
And and then American national pride.
There you go. That's exactly right. So say that one more time so everybody can get them.
So violated freedom of the seas,
Yep,
impressed American sailors,
yep,
and American national pride.
yep. That's exactly right. Okay, Lauren, give me 2 specific land areas that the United States was interested in gaining when Congress declared war on Great Britain.
Northern Alabama and Southern Canada.
Northern Alabama and Southern Canada. And what was the other one, Sage? Because I'm going to ask you for 2 of the 3.
Wait, what was one?
She said Southern Canada and Northern Alabama. And you're going to say Florida and the land surrounding the Gulf,
Gulf of Mexico.
Mexico. Florida and the land surrounding the Gulf of Mexico. Okay. Delaney, what did the citizens of the United States that opposed war refer to the War of 1812 as?
Mr. Madison.
Mr. Madison's War. Very good. Very good. Mr. Wiley, give me one example of the lack of preparation that the United States faced going into the War of 1812.
The British was it 8,000 or was it 800 ships?
800.
They had 800 and then we had 12 ships.
That's right. Dalton, give me another example.
They have thousands of troops, and we only have 7,000 with very old leaders.
Very good. Elderly Revolutionary War veterans would be better. So the United States Army had less than 7,000 troops compared to thousands of troops the British had, tens of thousands. And many of the commanders of the United States Army were elderly Revolutionary War veterans. Okay, Dane, what was the 3rd reason we were so unprepared?
Madison never appointed an overall commander.
To direct the war effort.
Yeah.
Which led to what? Poorly trained and equipped troops. Yeah. So Madison failed to appoint an overall commander to direct the war effort, which left American troops both poorly trained and equipped. Okay, Caitlin, give me one of the 3 distinct federal buildings that were attacked by the British in our nation's capital. Just one. Okay, the Capitol building. Maddie, give me another one.
The Treasury Building.
Treasury building, and a 3rd one there, Taylor. Of Library of Congress, and they even dined at this one. What was that one, Hunter? White House. So they actually attacked 4: the Capitol, the Treasury building, the White House, and the Library of Congress, using the books of the Library of Congress to set the fire, which resulted in Thomas Jefferson donating his personal library to the Library of Congress. It's kind of interesting when you go in there. You know, they've got several more books in the Library of Congress, but I took the kids on a tour last year, and we'll go this year. You look at the books, and all of them with a green ribbon in the book were original books owned by Thomas Jefferson. Pretty cool to see. Then they have all the volumes of every possible book in there, and if they're missing the volume, they just have kind of a cardboard little book-looking thing they stick in there that means they're still looking for that book that was lost originally when? During the fire. So they're trying to replace it all the way to exactly the way it was before the British invaded the Library of Congress, and you can see the ones Jefferson put in there, replace the ones that were burned, and then the ones they're still missing. And a lot of these ones are missing would be worth thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars to get them. But they can't find them. Okay, very good. All right. Cherith, my dear, during the British assault on Baltimore, what did Major George Armistead do to show his disdain for the British that were planning a march and sea attack on Fort McHenry? What do you do to kind of stick it in their face?
He had them build a huge flag.
Which was 42 feet by 30 feet. To do what? What was the point of it?
To hang it up and be defiant.
Right. He had them build a huge flag, 42 feet by 30 feet, that he was going to hang over Fort McHenry to make sure that the British could see that the American flag was there and plan to stay put. 42 by 30. Okay, very good. Siobhan, my dear, can you tell me why in the world Francis Scott Key was aboard one of those 5 British bombing vessels on the way to Fort McHenry? What the heck was he doing on one of those?
His client was
Something.
something.
And what was he that he would care? His client, like, was he figuring his taxes, or what was he doing? What was his client? Did something wrong, so what was his position? He was a lawyer. So he was an American lawyer that was aboard one of those 5 British bombing vessels trying to get one of his clients that was being held by the British free. And once he proved to the commander of that ship that his client was innocent of all charges, he agreed to let him go once the city of Baltimore was taken, right? Okay, so why was he on the ship? Because he was a lawyer that was trying to free one of his clients that was being held on one of the ships. Okay? Very good. Kezia, my dear, kind of explain the range difference between the British bombing cannons on those British bombing vessels and the American French naval guns that they had at Fort McHenry. What was the difference in range?
The British had a range of 2 miles, and the fort only had a range of 1.5 miles.
Very good. That's exactly right. 2-mile range for the British bombing vessel cannons, 1.5-mile range for those American French naval guns that were at Fort McHenry. That's very good. Tristan, what were the rockets' red glare and the bombs bursting in air during the 25-hour siege of Fort McHenry, leading to Francis Scott Key's Star-Spangled Banner?
The concrete rockets and cannonballs.
That's right. What do you think? Flag waving and the whole works. Huh? Pretty impressive. It's $5.95 at Walmart. The rockets red glare, the bombs bursting in air. Huh? We give it all to you in this class.